Good afternoon and welcome to this new session for our Catch&Do tank. Our session today will be dedicated to the question how to become a data-driven company. And we will have with us today ATS Global. So this session is recorded and you will get access to the recorded version after the webinar. It will be also an interactive workshop, so you will have the opportunity to share your views during the live webinar. We have a number of surveys for you, and you can also share your questions, so we will take them at the end of this webinar if we have enough time, but I guess we'll have enough time. So today with me, so I'm Régis Amla, I'm CTO of Blue Morpho, and today with me I have Alice Perez-Morillas helping me with the webinar. So good afternoon, Alice.
Hello, everyone.
And as well, our guest today from ATS Global, I'm really happy to welcome Katerina Muliadou, who are a digital innovation lead for ATS Global. So yeah, welcome Katerina, and thank you for being here today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, Régis. It's my pleasure.
So, I'm sorry, I think I have a technical issue. So we are a few words about Blue Morpho before we get into it. So Blue Morpho, we wake up every day to deliver a description for a positive impact. So we are a partner of a large organization. We perform technology scouting or innovation sourcing, slight differences. And what we do, we work in three kinds of actions. We are customer-centric, and we deliver new value proposition and new business models. That's what we do with one of our very specific products. We also operate open innovation to generate deal flow and activate collaborations. And we also co-create new ventures. So that's what we do. You have here a list of our famous customers. So a few words as well on the DIH² sponsors. So thank you to DIH² to sponsor this session. As you may know, the European Commission invests in robotics. Between 21 and 27, the Horizon Europe Framework Program in Artificial Intelligence and Robotics has gathered 15 billion euros of investment. And DIH² is part of this investment. And the mission of our mission as a network of digital innovation hub, so next slide, is to make advanced robotic solutions more affordable. We want to generate innovation that maximizes productivity and optimizes agility for European SMEs and mid-caps. We do that thanks to a digital innovation hub network. That's hence the name of the project. And we are today close to 100 digital innovation hubs. We started with about 25 to 30 DIH in our network, and others can join the project. So if you are a digital innovation hub and you want to join the party, we still have room for you. And again, we have reached close to 100 DIH, which gives access to about 300,000 manufacturing SMEs and mid-caps across Europe. In the next slide, we can see the partners. So as you can see, Blue Morpho is one of the proud partners of DIH². And save the date, there will be the inaugural DIH² convention, which will take place in Rotterdam on Friday, the 1st of July. It will follow the European Robotic Forum. So if you have a chance, yeah, join the party. So let's get into it. And as I mentioned before, we're going to have an interactive session. So please, there will be, you have here the first poll for today. So what, according to you, what keeps Katerina Muliadou up at night? Is it because she needs to guide clients towards a data-driven organization? Or is it because she needs to make data circulate in factories? Or she has to move 2 Eiffel Towers of metal, so we'll get back to that a little bit later. Or maybe Celine is the main problem for her to find sleep. So yeah, your contribution is required. So please, let's get into this poll. So Katerina, welcome again. I would like to start maybe with a quick introduction on what is Atlas actually, and how, because you are part of ATS Global, so maybe for the people who don't know ATS Global, you can say a few words about this organization, and more specifically, what is Atlas within ATS Global?
Sure. I'll start with ATS Global, I suppose, which is a large organization. It is global, as the name says as well. We're based in pretty much all over the world, and predominantly ATS Global is an IT systems integrator for manufacturing organizations. So they install MES systems, ERP systems, they get machines to talk to each other. They have also grown through acquisitions in the last few years. At its current stage, the company owns quite a large number of PLM solutions as well. So we are growing around the digital space. Now, Atlas was kind of initiated a few years back in 2018 by our current CDO, Martin Kelman, who had the idea of creating something more flexible beyond the current MES system that requires a lot of configuration and eliminates that joy for the customer to just reap all the benefits he can straight away. So he started looking at having at new business models. He looked at SaaS offerings, which are now the trending, I guess, new business model for software solutions. And we started developing as a team new technology integration. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We look out there, what's the best thing that does the job, and we have a platform that combines all of that together to resolve different problems. So we're looking at work around cloud analytics, edge computing. The strategy that we approach it from is capturing the process level first, what is that you need to be doing, and then the data required to run your processes. We disagree from the idea of capturing data for the sake of it. It should have value behind it and the meaning behind it. So this is how we try to enable our customers to get the grips of that data and make it meaningful for the organization, not just own more data. But yeah.
Atlas was created in 2019, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what is the status right now? Do you already have your products running, or what is the situation?
Yeah, so we work as a startup within a large organization. So we work very independently from the rest of the business, which has enabled us to be quite innovative and create and bring new products faster to the market. We branded ourselves as innovation team, and to date we have launched 3 products called Atlas Play, Atlas Boost, and Atlas Edge on our website. Can
you show the next slide, Alice, please, so that we can have an overview of, yeah, that's Atlas by number. So you were just saying that you have already launched 3 products. Can you say a few words about these 3 products?
That's correct, yes. So that aligns up to what I said earlier about starting from the process level to get value from data. The first product we launched, which is the core kind of backbone of the whole application, is called Atlas Play, and it's a software where you can map and also execute your business and manufacturing processes. Then Atlas Boost was the follow-up version, which is the capability to visualize your data through customizable dashboards. And also it's pretty much clearing up that data, because just getting data is not enough. You need to do a lot of cleaning up, a lot of sorting, a lot of correlation with other inputs as well. So this is what Boost is doing for us. And Atlas Edge is one of the latest ones that we have developed in our current innovation project, which is an edge capability to collect data at an edge level, as well as deploying algorithms at the edge level too.
Okay, so 3 products in only 3 years, and one, you are very active also in public funding as well. I see that you have raised up to 1.9 million. So we're going to talk about some of the projects where you are very active. Are you active into more national program, or have you been in the past more into European projects?
Yes, we're doing both. So we had projects funded by the European Commission. We also got an award by the Innovation Radar by the EU for the most innovative output of a project, which was Atlas Play at the time, which was
Nice.
very surprising for us. We didn't expect it. It's something that you just receive without applying for it, and it's reviewed by a panel of experts across the Europe. But yes, throughout these years, we managed to work with 37 partners, which was a lot to show that innovation and collaboration is key on bringing new ideas to the table and accelerating products to the market.
Perfect. So let's look at the results of the poll and to check what keeps you up at night. So yeah, surprisingly, most of the people think that you're trying to guide your clients towards a data-driven organization. I think that's one of your main concern. Do you mean that is it you're really what keeps you up at night?
Well, this is what I do by day, to be honest. But by night, unfortunately, I'm being disrupted by Celine, my 1-year-old,
And she's
which keeps me
also
up at night, literally.
she has a strong disruption potential then. Very good. So thank you. We'll come back to the Eiffel Towers a little bit later. This is something that I enjoyed during our preparation of this webinar. So we're going to move to the second question. So so Alice, if you can share with us the second poll. What are the main challenges to become a data-driven factory? I'm talking about factory, but company, it's more manufacturing company, let's say. Are there questions of connectivity? Is connectivity an issue? Cyber security, is it a challenge? What about the data quality? What about the data flow? Is it about the company organization? So please vote, give us what you think. What is your number one difficulty in becoming a data-driven company? Yeah, so maybe we can, while people are voting, maybe we can a little bit give a few definitions of what is data, what does it mean to be data-driven, and how do you become a data-driven company? We're not talking about digitalization. So do you have a process in mind, a kind of like the technology readiness level? You see, you have that into product development. Do you see a digitalization readiness? Is there this kind of scale already?
Yes, it is all linked with each other, isn't it? We can't really see it independently, but in terms of the definition, it's something it is defined, but it's defined slightly different by various consultancies and organizations. So there is a little bit of a lack in terms of what data-driven means, and probably means different things to different companies, and different companies will have different objectives about what level of data-drivenness they would like to be. So that's really key to consider when we evaluate a company, how driven they are. It's also related to how much they want to be. But in general terms, data-drivenness means organizations that are capable of making decisions based on data across the whole organization. So if, let's say, you work in any department in procurement, you need to know how much stock exactly you've got left within your production floor and when do you need to order extra. This is a very basic example, but in some organizations this is solved already, and in some others this is high-tech expectation. So that kind of shows the gap in terms of the digitization levels that different companies have to face.
Okay, very good. So, and according to your experience working with large organizations, so what would you say are the main challenges then? We have reviewed a few, but from your point of view, which one is the main problem?
Well, it is a combination of things, and again, it depends on our different organizations on what they think the problem is and what the actual problem is. So the conception about the problem is also different. Generally, probably customers, depending on who you speak with, if it's from the production floor, they say we don't have good IT/OT integration, or processes are lacking, or our people don't have the knowledge to adapt to new technologies. We need to upskill our people. If you speak to their IT team, the feedback you get from there is quite different. Overall, though, if we look at it from the triangle of people, processes, and technology, the issue is not in the technology anymore. There are loads of technologies available out there which they can do impressive things if they're applied correctly for the right application. And the issue seems to be mainly on the people level, so about the culture, about the mindset to adapt these new technologies, because whether we want it or not, we are all being disruptive. We've changed, especially the last few years, how we all work. We are all forced to use digital tools to communicate, otherwise you won't be able to progress with your job. So in a similar way, any manufacturing environment as well is disrupted by new technologies coming forward, because some people will adapt new technologies and they will progress in terms of a competitive advantage. So if you lag behind, you're just going to be continually lagging. So the faster you jump on the train, the better it is to keep up with the new advancements.
So you mentioned that being data-driven is to be capable to make decisions based on your data, whatever the level of the organization. You mentioned the shop floor, but you also mentioned the purchase department, which must be connected. So you mentioned the mindset. Is it a difficulty of mindset to have the data circulate? Is it easy to have the data circulating into the shop floor alone already, or is it more difficult to have it circulating between departments? Where are the difficulties? You mentioned mindsets, but again, is it a question of mindset again?
It is probably a mindset, because the mindset would change based on a good company strategy. So what's required is to have a very defined team with a chief data officer, for example, who is clearly responsible for the delivery of such an initiative within the organization. And it's really key to have the backing of the CEO as well to be able to push that initiative down. So in many case studies, it has worked top-down approach. And eventually people need to accept and understand the benefits that the business will have and how important it is to adapt these technologies, because at the moment, departmental silos is a huge issue. You might talk to one team and they'll say, we're totally digitized, everything is online, but they just keep it between themselves, and another department doesn't have visibility of that. Another problem is the real-time data. If you will also say, yes, we track everything and everything is recorded, but it's not real time. So in that sense, you can really make an informed decision based on the data you have at the moment. It will be last week's information that you have collected.
There are more, when you say everything is recorded, they are more into the digitization space, and they are not yet in the exploitation of the data, which could be the digitalization phase of the process. So so how long lasts this process of changing the mindset? Have you already seen a company which is capable, which has done the whole process to go from scratch and to become a real data-driven company?
Well, a few of them are data leading companies, and it seems that the ones that offer digital software solutions or products are in the forefront, such as Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook. They're one of or Google, they're one of the top in the list. But that's the question, how about the rest of us? Can we still catch up with that? Because obviously the capability they have in terms of the knowledge around the technologies is impeccable. So how can we compare to that? And this is one of the issues, but some of the companies that have achieved different levels of maturity, because there are other manufacturing companies that have done that as well, is by putting the right structure in place, as I said, with the right team dedicated on that. And also what was emphasized a lot was upskilling people and training them and giving them that data literacy level across the organization to make sure that everybody has the right level of training, and it's the same across everybody. So it doesn't vary across different teams. And the other thing is diversifying the groups. Instead of having a segregated team just with tech people, and then everybody continues doing their job on day-to-day admin stuff or any other engineering bits as they used to have, they start diversifying. So they start seeding a technical person into every team, so they can start creating those conversations, or also have internal champions where people can reach out to and ask how they can do something in a more digital way.
Yeah, that's really, really a culture. It's also kind of internal marketing. That's really about communication is kind of really important to convince people that there's some value to do that. You mentioned large companies. So do you have experience also with small businesses? Is there a difference between the adoption of digitization and digitalization between a large corporate and a small business?
Yeah, there's a study actually done by IDC, and it's published in conjunction with Tableau as well. And they have a very nice graphic about the digitalization level across different companies globally. And you can filter down and see how it's performing in terms of the company size. And the company size doesn't seem to make any difference to the level. Overall, in terms of how data-driven a company is. And I think that probably comes from the different challenges that they face. So a large company has obviously a lot of people. They will need to change the mindset, which is a huge initiative. To perform any change in any large organization is very difficult, if not impossible sometimes, and it takes a long time. The processes as well, they are very linked to each other, and they have very kind of strict processes. So how do they make sure that this introduction doesn't disrupt everything too much, and people still know what they're doing? But on the other side, they can afford and integrate new technologies, high tech, and the best solutions out there financially. That's the opposite for smaller companies, who obviously don't have the financial freedom as the larger ones. But on the other side, there's work in smaller groups, so they're more agile. And I think agility is a very important key to becoming data-driven, the ability to adapt and change based on your environment. And this is the competitive advantage of all the small companies. And now, probably with all the funding available by national institutions, the EU as well, as you mentioned earlier, is really to put that extra push for the smaller organizations to become data-driven, to embrace what they have naturally, which is the skills, the attitude, the mindset, and the structure, and the size of the company. They should see it as an advantage rather than a fallback.
Yeah, indeed, in DRH², as you mentioned, this is we want to create success stories for this kind of digitalization effort. And sometimes the first step is just the visualization of the data, and it's already a big difference for some organizations. But since we want to exploit those data, we want to be able to make decisions on that. So we are not yet at the stage where everything is connected from department to the shop floor, even though some of the projects we are running delivers this capability to connect, for example, the shop floor with an AMR traveling from the stock to the machines and delivering the product from the stock to the machines and updating the stock in live. So we are in this direction. Indeed, the value here is that the CEO is never very far. And as you mentioned, the commitment of the CEO here is quite easy to get. Okay, so let's get into the results of the poll. Let's look at what people think. What are the main challenges? So the data quality seems to be, for our audience, one of the main challenges. The second would be cybersecurity, and in fact, connectivity, data flow, and company organization are more or less at the same level. Whereas you have really put the company organization at the top of the concerns. So do you want to comment on that? What do you think about the data quality which is collected from the machines, from everywhere? Do you experience difficulties with data quality?
Yeah, this is exactly it. What we say all the time is you get what you put in.
Mm,
And this is going back to the discussion about the mindset and the people. If you have manual inputs from people or people making sure that they do that input, they log
mm,
that data, and maybe they don't do that on time or they don't do it promptly or what they put as values are wrong, then obviously your data quality will be
okay.
completely disrupted. So yeah, this is definitely one of the key issues and challenges at the moment, which should be resolved with upskilling people and giving them a good level of data literacy so they can
Mhm.
understand how important that is for the business.
And also maybe automating the collection of data as well.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Where it's possible, yeah.
Yeah, you did not mention cybersecurity. Here it seems to be kind of 30% of the people in the room think that cybersecurity is one of the main problems. It's true that we often hear the difficulty. For example, you mentioned the SaaS model at the beginning of the discussion, which is interesting business model because it enables you to pay as you grow. And indeed, for a company, it's interesting to see the progress and increase the effort gradually. So the SaaS model it seems to be well adapted, but very often it requires to upload your data in the cloud, and cybersecurity is maybe an issue. So what do you think about that? Do we have the technologies for cybersecurity today?
Yeah, this is a very common one that keeps coming up. I
Mm,
almost see it as a risk rather than as a challenge currently, because there are technologies out there that are pretty secure, and probably most of us use the cloud a lot more than we even realize. I mean, even this call is going to be stored somewhere in the cloud and accessible later on. So all of that, we just don't think about it in that way. And now for the organizational level, of course, it's important to make sure that we know about all this data flow. Where does everything go? Where is it stored? For how long? Who's got access to that? And technically speaking, this is feasible to be isolated and make sure it's private to the individual company. What the companies need to do is look at their processes and make sure that they have ownership, responsibilities, everything aligned to make sure that this risk of cyber threats, I suppose, it's tackled and constantly monitored. So it's not a challenge; it's more of a risk management topic.
okay, so we have a question from the audience, and I think I'm going to take it now because this is straight to the point. Don't you think that relying on a human in the context of data collection is bad practice? It had better automate data collection. So it's a little bit connected to the remark that I made. What do you think about, is it a bad practice to involve humans in data collection?
It is a bad practice to involve them maybe in the data collection, but all the data is being collected for a human to make a decision at some point. So we need to have that human-centric approach in mind always when we introduce technologies, in terms of eliminating any dummy tasks that a
Mm,
human just needs to click a button or press things on a keyboard. We all do type wrong things, and that's why autocorrect was invented. But even that we get wrong sometimes, and we get in trouble. So because we're humans. But at the end of the day, we still live in a world where we need to make the final decision. I'm sure that very few of us will be happy if it was a computer that would decide whether we need to have a surgery or what type of surgery rather than a person. So humans still have the power, and this is why humans should be
mm,
still at the center. But for data collection itself, yes,
yeah.
I agree.
Maybe the question of the involvement of human into this whole system is indeed a future challenge. Let's get into the next question, the next poll. So thank you for your question, Denis. So if don't hesitate, I'm saying this is very interactive. If you have any questions that pop to your mind, we will take it. So now let's talk about the main drivers for adoption. So what are the main drivers to adopt to become a data-driven company or digitalization? Is it cost reduction? Is it value chain optimization? Do you believe that it's more because you want to have a lesser impact and you want to become a sustainable company? And in fact, there's no other way. You have to digitalize or you die. You will not be, you will not exist as a company in the future. So yeah, let's we give you a few seconds to vote, to give us your opinion. Now, Katerina, would like to go into more concrete case. Maybe you could give us a few examples on what you have already done. You mentioned a project about welding. What I would like you to discuss is more what is the value proposition at the beginning, what was the expectation, and at the end, did you achieve what was expected?
Yeah, we had a couple of actually projects around digitizing processes lately and incorporating new technologies. One of them was, yeah, heavily around data and improving the current process based on the data that you receive, and it was called Well Zero. So that's a project with a few end users like BMW, Lanco O'Rourke in the construction industry, and Subsea 7 in oil and gas. All of them pretty much have got a few manual processes and they'd like to automate it for different reasons. So this is quite interesting to see that the same approach and the same solution brings different industries different values, and because their objectives are quite variable. But the challenge is still the same across all of them. It was collecting meaningful data. First was connecting to something. And this is difficult sometimes depending on the machines that you need to connect to. A lot of machine providers lock down their equipment, so it's impossible to get anything useful out of it. Even if you do something, there is very little you can do with that data. So it's important to start as a supply chain being more open about sharing data and giving value to others as well as yourself within that ecosystem, because it's all relative. And then another issue we had was communication standards. I think I attended a conference the other day. They mentioned about 200 different standards in manufacturing. So you can imagine why things are going so slow and so difficult for any integrator or any solution provider to be able to provide offerings to cover all this range. So there is lack of continuity across different industries and even across different companies. Even if you work in the same industry, each organization has their own communication standards, their own data standards, and we need to have certain a common understanding, I think, with what needs to be the best practice. And there's a huge lack on that. And then finally, there's a little bit of, I guess, more thought and more research that needs to be done within the technical elements as well. So we looked at deploying AI by collecting data from the edge. The AI was based in the cloud for the training purposes, which means you need to upload loads of data continuously. Necessarily, you don't need all the data for your AI algorithm, but this is how it's structured from the machine. So you can't really break it down before you upload it. And uploading it one by one would cost a fortune, because this is a costing model of the cloud. You're being costed by an event. So whether you're sending one string of data or a whole batch of data is the same thing. It's just that element that you upload that counts. So that kind of makes it difficult to have real-time processing capability. Of course, once you have that sorted and you have the perfect algorithm, you can always deploy it on the edge, which saves you a lot of computing power as well, and it's a more sustainable option. But to get there, you obviously need to think about these architectural elements in the right way and know how your algorithms as well are working based on the data that you're collecting.
But yeah, that's really interesting. There are some data which are locked into machines. And you mentioned, even if you have access to those data, you don't know which one are valid, because the machine maker knows the machine better than you. The question of the ownership of the data is also an interesting question, because I purchased a machine. Why don't I have access to the data inside the machine? Because that's my machine, that's my process. Yeah, that's an interesting question. But the big question, the question which relies behind everything is, how do I choose the meaningful data? How do I choose where I will calculate in the cloud, I will process in the edge? Do you have already some tools for that? Are there tools which helps you to decide which data you need, or do you need to test and try everything to converge towards something meaningful?
At the moment, it's more of a trial and error, really. We're in a learning journey ourselves. And that's what we're trying to use these projects to learn what are the elements we need to look at to develop deployment methodology. So we will have that as a competitive advantage for commercial projects. But yeah, I think it's kind of a challenging one as well if it includes AI, because most of AI is kind of very custom and very application related, so it's difficult to develop something that's applicable to all the possible options you will have to explore out there. So you still need to have that element of flexibility and adaptability in your methodology and in your thinking.
Okay, and how can we unlock the data which are into a machine? Do you have an idea about that, or is it pure negotiation with the machine maker, or how does it work?
I think it goes back again to the mindset. It's changing the mindset, and also probably the big customers have the buying power, so they need to push their supply chains to share openly the data. But on return, they also need to share data back as well, because I also had discussions with small organizations within the supply chain that provide equipment, and they say, well, we'd love to know when our equipment's about to break down so we can arrange for a service straight away, rather than it breaking down and the customer is unhappy with it because we don't have the scheduling or the capacity to service it. So it is a two-way thing, and yeah, it's changing the mindset and being more collaborative.
Yeah, I think this might be connected to this idea of data is the new oil, and so everyone wants to sit on this big pile of data, doesn't want to share it. And in fact, the value of data seems to be more into the circulation of data than really having static data somewhere. What do you think about that?
Definitely agree. I mean, data is the new oil, but it's a crude oil. It needs a lot of cleaning to become usable. So from that perspective, the quantity doesn't matter. It's the quality that you get.
Yeah, okay. In the various drivers that we have listed, so we mentioned impact and sustainability. This is something that we see a lot right now. With everything is about impact. Every investor, every venture capital investor has to reach some sustainability goal. The regulation is changing in this direction. So, do you see that as a driver for the adoption of becoming a data-driven company? You mentioned this experience with Rolls-Royce.
Yeah, there was a presentation, yes, by Rolls-Royce that they adapted actually AI in their supply chain. So they're exploring as well through their R Square Labs, which is the digital group of Rolls-Royce. It goes back again to having the right structure and a dedicated team to work on specific data-driven initiatives. So this is the same example. And they've started recently looking at just putting together the right source of information. So they discovered that they had different sources reporting different results and different records all over the place. So just putting everything together and ensuring that what you have is the accurate description and content made them save huge amount of scraps across the supply chain, which was worth a few £1 million just for the 1 year.
Yeah, and it was about collecting metal, right? You mentioned that.
Yeah, it was worth 2 Eiffel Towers, actually.
That's the story about 2 Eiffel Towers. You know, I checked the weight of an Eiffel Tower. I was not sure because of this metric. It's 10,000 tons. So twice the weight of a Eiffel Tower is 20,000 tons of metal scrap that could be collected from digitalization. And that this metal was not collected, was not recycled at all. It was a pure loss. And you mentioned that it may save something like 6 million in terms of savings just with this kind of action. So this should be a driver, definitely. Okay, so thank you. Let's look at the results of the poll. to check if so people think that indeed there are two things. We're talking about value chain optimization, and the mindset is that there's no other way, you have to digitalize, otherwise you won't be competitive. So you mentioned that. So do you see the value chain optimization as a main concern? Is it connected to the current situation with a shortage of about everything in the world right now?
It is certainly because, yes, we see companies improving their offerings, incorporating new business models, and identifying opportunities that they didn't know they could do beforehand. So, with the ability to digitize and having that data, they see new value. So they optimize that.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the digitize or die, yes, this is also very true. It's what we mentioned earlier that, yeah, if you fall behind, you will only keep falling behind even further. It is a train that we all need to jump off, whether we like it or not. It's just in our lives.
Mm. Okay, so thank you. So we're going to move to the next section of our discussion. You mentioned also, so I'm sorry, you mentioned also some issues with. So we're going to move to the next poll. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit lost within my papers right now. So we're going to move to the next poll about the. So Alice, if you could check to the next poll. You are also involved into a project where you explore the capability of the 5G for production, right?
Yes, that's true.
So, yeah,
Uh,
what did you learn from that?
This is a recent, very great project that we completed with Ford, Vodafone, TWI in the UK, VFE, and TM Forum, amongst other partners. And it was a collaborative project where the idea was to try and apply 5G within a manufacturing environment. So one of the use cases we explored was deploying it on a welding line as well, which incorporated some automated inspection. And we're trying to correlate the data that we collect from inspection and optimize the manufacturing process. That was one of the use cases. The second one was remote maintenance assistance. So if a machine would break down, they could link up with their maintenance team, which was an external organization, to have access securely within the data from the machine and provide remote instructions to the operator on the shop floor to service the machine themselves. So that would save them time, and then potentially they could start collecting data and start predict as well when the machine is going to fail rather than waiting for it to fail, and schedule it better within the line. Yeah, again, we discovered the same issue was with the communications used. There's no specific standards, so there was a lot of work trying to make the application fit towards data communication standards, which was, it's not difficult, it's just time consuming, which adds to the time that you will bring a new offering to their production floor. So it minimizes their value as well, the value that they get from the solution.
Mm-hmm.
But it is feasible. And then we have discovered as a consortium quite a few challenges. There's still roadblocks for the 5G adaptability and adoption by the wider industry. So, of course, it's a great technology in terms of processing data very, very fast, but in the production context, we discovered that it's more important, or equally important, the upload speed that you have as well as the download speed. And this is quite different to their consumer model at the moment, where the download speed is the only key requirement, how fast you're going to watch your Netflix movie or see your smart devices on your phone. So in the manufacturer, we had to upload lots of inspection data, and that was real time. So the speed was significantly lower. It wasn't bad, but it just doesn't justify necessarily the benefits are being published around 5G. And
Yeah, typically people don't really know that, because when 5G is advertised, you have the feeling that every smartphone would be ubiquitous thanks to the 5G. You can connect to any smartphone in the world if it's connected to the 5G. But actually, what you said, that the upstream and downstream links are not the same. And the difference is quite huge, right? The downstream is in the range of maximum in the range of 1 gigabit per second, when you have only a few, I'm not even sure you have 1 megabit per second in upstream, right?
It was, though it was a little bit better for us. I need to review back our measurements, because we did test out the speed, and I had a picture of the latency as well. I think it was about 14, but that's on top of my head. But yeah, it wasn't horrible, the upload, but it was near half the download speed. Now,
Okay.
I know that some of the providers, they're looking at potentially kind of splitting that speed down, so you could have an equivalent one. There are some
Okay.
configurations that they can do, but it's just not been proven yet, as far as I know. Everything is still in exploration phase. And I think if you could look at the Gartner's hype cycle of the technology of 5G, 5G is now at the top of the expectations. Everybody thinks they can resolve all the problems with 5G. So slowly now, as we try to explore more, as any other technology is not going to solve all our problems, we will define where is the potential, and gradually will deflate in terms of its expected value.
Yeah, we will be soon in the disillusion part of the Gartner. Okay, I get it. So you also mentioned that the quantity of data is very important. So what is so it means that we're going to upload every data from a factory into the cloud for processing?
And no, for me, the quality is more important than the quantity. 5G will give you the option to upload these fast quantities, but the question is, do you really need these quantities? It depends really on the application. Sometimes it's a yes, sometimes it's a no. If we're talking about an infrastructure where you collect data from many cars on the streets, yeah, you have huge data, and probably 5G is a great application for that. Within a factory, though, again, it depends on the application. And we used welding application for the 5G project because it creates so much data. But then you have limitations in terms of how fast the devices can stream that data as well. So you might have a very powerful network, but you cannot collect that data so fast anyways.
Right, and there's a cost associated with the volume of data as well.
Yeah, as we mentioned about upstreaming into the cloud, yeah, it depends on how you architecture that around.
Okay, so very good. So we're reaching the end of this this session. So if there are any questions in the room, we would be happy to take them. How do you collaborate with companies, with small businesses, for example? We're going to take the last poll, Alice, where we ask if people want to get in touch with us. So how do you collaborate with smaller business? Because we have an audience with mostly smaller businesses.
We have a few small companies in our consortiums, so I think this is one of the benefits that these externally funded government projects support, is that they force, in a way, in a good way, companies to work together, and this is how smaller companies can have the opportunity to work with larger ones and large customers and showcase the value. In the Well Zero project, we have an SME based near London. It's called HAL Robotics, and they've managed to reach out to all these three huge companies through this project. So we work together with them, and it's really about the collaboration. So if anybody would like to work with us, please reach out.
Okay, so thank you very much. I don't see any more questions in the room, so I think I'm going to move straight to the announcement of the next sessions. So the next session will take place in July, in the first week of July. Actually, I don't have a date for you right now, but it will be Festo who will be our host for the first week of July, and maybe another one in the same month. So with Festo, I'm going to make sure to understand how the data in the machines are going to be shared, because we're going to discuss about this pyramid of because there are suppliers of equipments for machine makers, and they provide components with AI. So that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, so thank you very much again. So this session is going to be, so it's recorded. It will be available soon in replay from our website, but also from our LinkedIn account. So thank you all, and thank you, Katarina, again for your participation. Have a great day.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Bye-bye.